Mhm. Hello, everyone. How about we get started with introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about you?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is John Gremillion, and I'm reporting to you from Wichita, Kansas, in my hotel room here. But we've graciously been allowed by PortCon, Maine, to do this little panel for you. Really happy to be here. I'm a voice actor, anime voice actor for the past 25 years now. Done a lot of work with ADV Films back in the day, which is now Sentai, and I'm still working with them. Okratron, Funimation, done a lot of video games. I'm probably best known for a couple of characters. One of them is Gentle Criminal in My Hero Academia, Gentle Criminal Actual Service, and Hawkeye Mihawk from One Piece for your One Piece fans. Chef Roland Chappelle, the French guy from the French Gordon Ramsay from Food Wars. Let's see, I played Vampire Hunter D in the redub that Sentai did in 2015 of Vampire Hunter D, the original 85 movie. We put it on Blu-ray, and I played D in that one. And let's see what else. Gosh, I've done a slew of stuff over the past 25 years, and everything from panty and stocking for Funimation to bit parts in Attack on Titan or Fire Force. I usually play a lot of villains, but I've been having a great time doing it for 25 years.
That sounds great. Have you ever been to Maine before?
I have not been to Maine. I'm going to be in Connecticut next month, but I have not been. I've been to Maine probably on vacation like one time when I was a kid, and I'd love to get up to Maine in person one time. How's the weather up there, by the way?
It's great. It's been about 5 this weekend, which is about the hottest it's been so far, but it's still nice.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm from Houston, and it's like you melt.
Yeah.
It's like living in a mouth. It's terrible.
Right. So we've got a good group of people. I don't know, I'm going to move the camera so I can see everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So let's see. Have any questions for John to start off? Or I got a few, I guess. I can start off.
Go for it.
Let's see. What gets you into the headspace when you play your roles? Like what any techniques do you do to
Wow, that's really a good question, because any voice actor will tell you that voice acting is so much different than stage acting or film acting, because you're not working with real people, you're not working on a set, you're not working in an environment, you're not having to put on costumes or makeup or anything. You don't have to look like the character. You can show up in your PJs and your flip-flops feeling like garbage, but as long as your voice is good. So it's a very interesting way to do work, and it's a very interesting way to do acting. So you're in an environment that doesn't lend itself at all to making you feel like you're actually the character, because you just have to look at the anime screen and everything's done for you there, and you're filling in a tiny little booth. And so I just have to focus as much of my attention as possible to what I'm watching in the scene itself. And if the director can play back the scene first and get you into it, and you can just kind of imagine yourself there, it's a really weird way to act, because everything's being taken care of, for you by, what's on screen. So, when you talk about getting into a headspace, it's really interesting. I just try to imagine that I'm in that screen that I'm watching, which is even tougher when you go in, because every actor goes in one by one, right? So we never record together unless we're doing walla, like background noise, or we are doing commentary on a DVD or something special like that. They have us come in one by one. And if you go in or record your English lines and no one else has recorded their English lines, then you're playing off of Japanese and you're reading subtitles. And that's another plate you got to spin and just kind of go, okay, I'm in the zone, because you're not hearing somebody in English talk to you that you can respond off of, right? So that makes it a little difficult and tricky. So there's all kinds of it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Kind of what's a general normal voice acting session like how set up, what do you do, how long are you working for a day?
I usually try to go in for no more than a couple of hours, because if you're doing a loud character and you're doing a lot of screaming or some battle scenes or something, 3 hours can really wear on your throat after a while. And a lot of actors will tell you that they'll go in, do the screams, then have to take a break, come back, maybe reschedule a different day. So I try to only go in for a couple of hours at a time. it's pretty much my fill, 3 hours max. And then you get a break in between and stuff like that. But so, usually how it goes is I'll just get a phone call, and I rarely know the show that I'm working on. I go in really cold, and just get to know the character right off the bat. You're in episode 3, then you're in episode 5 and 6, then you're in episode 13. When you do a simuldub, you go in once a week. So you get to know the character a little bit better that way. And you can probably watch the Japanese online somewhere with the sub version and get to know the scenes, which is better, because then you're a little more prepared. You come in loaded with some information. But there's been a lot of times when I've gone in just completely cold. And what you have to do is do episodes 3, 6, 7, 12, and 13, and then your character dies or something. And then and you do it all in one batch, and you don't even really know what the context is. So it's kind of like a cold reading almost, or an improvisation exercise. But whatever you do that day, that's on the DVD, right? Or that's on High Dive or Funimation Now or something like that. So a typical day is only just a couple hours, really.
Nice.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite role or favorite types of role to play are?
My favorite role used to be Hawkeye Mihawk, because One Piece is such a cool show to begin with, and it's so long and so rich and so varied, and all these different arcs. And he's a character who's just a supernatural badass. Not a lot of work to do, just shows up and goes, "Hello, I'm a badass, goodbye." And then I record that maybe once every couple of years. I've been recording him since 2004.
Wow.
And I went in the first day and recorded him, and then we've been recording him ever since. And there's going to be a final arc coming up pretty soon. He's probably going to have some big battles to do. Who knows? I'm looking forward to it. But my favorite role has to be Gentle Criminal, and that's not because it's my hero, but because, and maybe this is why My Hero is such a popular show. The writing is really good. The characters are very three-dimensional. Everybody's got a really interesting backstory. Gentle's got a fascinating backstory. It's really sad, but he's witty, and he's human, and he's flawed, and he's got his own issues, and it's a sad story. But that three-dimensional, and it's British, so I love doing a British voice, British accent. Any kind of time I can do accents, it's a lot of fun. So that's become my favorite role, when I can really stretch. And anytime I can stretch and do an accent and do something that's not my regular voice and give that to the character, that's always a lot of fun. But he's become my favorite.
Yeah, it's always fun, like trying new voices. I just DM like fans, and I have fun doing different voices. I'm not a professional at all, but it is fun just trying different things.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Let's see. So when you have a long role, like say in One Piece or whatever, and you have a premiere, how far in advance do they let you know you have something coming up, or is it just kind of the blue one day or like that?
Yeah, they just call you, and they just call you maybe a week before, 2 weeks before, and try to schedule it. Usually about a week. Like, can we get you in next week to do a couple of hours? And the pandemic's been very interesting, because like when we recorded Gentle Criminal, we had 6 episodes in My Hero to record. We recorded the first 3 of them, heard that COVID was shutting down the rodeo in Houston, and that's when the news broke when I was there for my 3rd session. The following week, we couldn't go in, and Funimation shut their offices down, and nobody could go into the studio, and the pandemic was brand new. Every voice you've ever heard after that, no matter who the character was, from crowd scenes to lead roles in everything that Funimation put out, that was every voice actor was in their house.
Wow.
In a remote studio, and they were not in the studios with Funimation anymore for a couple of years. And they've changed that now. They've gone back to in person now that Crunchyroll has now that it's strictly Crunchyroll. But so people are going back into the studio now. But for a couple of years there, everybody was recording in their house. So the first 3 episodes were in their studios. The 3rd set were in my closet in Houston, and we were just doing internet like this, and we were watching lip flaps and making sure. So it was a very interesting process. But usually you get a call about a week in advance. Can we record you next week at Sentai, or can you get up into your studio? And Funimation could call me in the last couple of years and go, do you have a minute, like in an hour? I was like, yeah, I'll run upstairs instead of driving to Fort Worth and getting a hotel room. It's a more complicated thing. So yeah, we get about a week's notice.
Nice. Any audience questions so far?
Yes. So I don't know if you hear me okay, but what's been like your most difficult character to voice? Like your most difficult
Did you hear that?
The most difficult character I've ever had to record?
Yep.
Usually it's been something that's really tough on the voice. We did something, I did a couple of things at ADV years ago that were just killer. One was like an evil prison warden in Street Fighter, and he had to keep whipping this guy, and he was just being brutal. And so it was all this, just like really, really nasty sounding. And there was another character in Nadesco a long time ago. I don't know if anybody watches Martian Successor Nadesco. They made a series and they made a movie. And my character was called Munataki. And he had a real high voice like this, and he was rugged. So when he had to scream, it was not just screaming and putting the effort into the scream, but it was screaming at a really high pitch. And that was a mistake. I wish I had not, if I'd known I was going to scream as much as I did as him, I probably would have given him a different voice. Or there's a guy named Yutaka Takanuchi in Cromartie High School, which is one of my favorite comedies that I ever recorded. And I played the school bully, and he talked like this, and he had a bald head, and blah, blah, blah. That was really tough because I had to be gruff, and every time you do a video game, you're just doing nothing but yelling. So I don't feel, the one show that I'm going to be honest that I'm almost glad that I've never gotten a role in is Dragon Ball, because everybody's screaming in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
So I'm actually kind of glad I never did that.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you do to like protect your voice in those positions?
The best thing you can do is just to drink as much water as you possibly can. Just lubricate as much as possible. I drink tea. I bring tea into the studio, something called Throat Coat that you can get at Whole Foods. It's really good for, or Slippery Elm. But I like tea. I like tea's the best. And Gentle Criminal loves tea, so of course. But yeah. It's been great that usually helps out a lot. And you just got to breathe real deeply, and you've just got to let the breath carry the sound. Some of us actually go to vocal coaches to learn more about how to sing, because they know how to sing well, but it also applies to screaming. Like when you have to yell and really hit belt notes, there's a different part of your voice. It's kind of, I think it's called the pharyngeal area. It's in the back, and you take it off the vocal cords in the front and let it go. Imagine that it's coming in the back of your throat and out your head. It's really weird, but it's a visual that you can use. And sometimes it just opens this up more and lets the sound come out no matter how loud it has to be. But you have to practice.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're doing a voice, like a high-pitched voice, it doesn't allow you to, because you have to get the voice right first and then scream on top of that with that voice. Yeah. So that's more difficult to do.
Do you do ups getting ready for that? Do you do any warm-ups getting ready for that?
I don't. I should, but I don't. I'm a bad boy. I don't do that. When I'm in a musical or something, or if I'm in a play, I'll vocally warm up before I go on stage. But I don't vocally warm. You've got me. I'm busted.
Busted.
Yep, totally.
Yep. Any more from the audience? Yeah.
If there was one like series or show that you could voice a character, what would you want to voice? Like, who would you want to voice next?
Oh, if someone I haven't voiced that I would like to voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know because I don't know a lot of shows. I only know the shows that I've been in, right? I'm not following anime shows, frankly, that I haven't been in yet. But I'd love to do more in My Hero. I love My Hero a lot. It's because the writing is so good. I'd love to play another villain, or I'd love to come back as Gentle. I think he needs a redemption arc. He needs to come back and save the world. He and LaBrava need to get a redemption arc and help everybody, kill the villains off. But that's been one of my favorite shows, and I'd love to do more on that. I'd like to. Good question. There's a couple of Spy Family I heard is a really cool show.
Yeah, I hear that's really.
Or doing some Demon Slayer, maybe that'd be fun.
Yeah. Have you worked Western animation at all?
Have I ever done what? I'm sorry.
Western animation, like Netflix, Cartoon Network.
No, I haven't. It's strictly been anime for. Let's see. Aside from video games, I just did a video game. A lot of us helped out on some side roles in a video game called Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Okay, yeah.
Really fun. Really, really funny. And the comedy writing was great. We're not listed on the main cast, but we're kind of on maybe on the box. If you buy the actual game, you can find us. Yeah. But we're playing side roles. But aside from those video games and things like that, I haven't done animation for shows for like Cartoon Network or things like that. It's strictly been for anime studios.
Okay. What's like what's the difference process between recording for anime or video games?
Video games are a lot more out of context, right? You're just recording a series of lines. It's really, really weird. Like when I recorded Gentle Criminal for it was the Heroes, My Hero Academia video game that was out. I forgot the name of it. It was once Heroes Justice 2 or something. All we did was have a set of lines. Like I would say, there you go, or huh, or more and more, or come at me, or take that. And it's not in any kind of you're not having a conversation. Right, excuse me. You're not having any kind of a conversation or any kind of a specific scene. So you just have to say some lines, and you got to try to vary them up. Pardon me.
Sorry.
You got to try to vary it up a little bit because you don't know any context that you're in. It's a lot easier to record anime because there's a definite context in a scene, and something's at stake, and you know what's at stake. But in a video game, most of the time you're just fighting. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
So you're just beating somebody up. And every one of your lines is the same thing. Ha, nah, take that. And you yell a lot.
Right.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Anyone from the audience?
How do you get started in the career?
The question was, how did you get started in the career?
ADV Films, a long time ago in the late 90s, they were a new studio essentially in like 96 or 97, I think is when they started. And I started in 98. And what happened was that they started to acquire more and more anime licensing for a lot of different shows, right? Golden Boy and Dirty Pair and Nadisco and Bubblegum and all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And they didn't have any actors. They didn't have a big pool of talent that they could pull from. They didn't have a big pool of actors. So they put out a bunch of audition notices in the Houston papers, right? The Houston Press. So in the back of the Houston Press, we saw, hey, audition call, want to record voiceovers for, voices for cartoons, for anime. And a bunch of us heard about it. And Houston has a big theater scene. There's a lot of actors in Houston, right? There's a lot of different theaters from, it's more like they have their own kind of Broadway and off Broadway. They've got tons of theaters in Houston. And so a lot of us just went to these auditions in the late 90s, and we waited inside this room like we were auditioning for a commercial. One by one, we would go in, meet the directors. And Matt Greenfield was the director I met. And I recorded some lines for Dirty Pair. I got cast in that. I did Sorcerer Hunter's Dirty Pair with him. Then you meet other directors. And then as you got in there, that you kind of became their pool of talent. So they had a lot of the same people do a lot of different roles. And me and John Swayze, and I think Monica Rial, and Lucy Christian, and gosh, Colleen Klinkenbeard, and a lot of people who came from Houston who were actors who were doing theater became their thing. So if you go to Houston or live there and you know anybody in theater and you meet a bunch of actors, chances are, if you look up their name on IMDb, they've got an anime rap sheet. We've all got a list of anime that we've done, because it's all done in Houston and Fort Worth, most of it. And today, I don't know exactly, there's a lot of different ways that people can get into it, but it's either how you know, who you know, or you've sent a demo reel to someone, or the directors come to see shows and they hear somebody's voice and go, let's talk to them at intermission or after the show and see if they want to audition for a voice acting role. They're looking for talent that way. John Swayze, who's a great voice actor, he plays All for One and he's played Lord Death in Soul Eater, and he's got a real great career. He goes to cons every weekend.
Yep, he was here a few years.
Yeah, that's right. He's been everywhere. He's been everywhere. He's never not traveling.
Yeah.
He and I are really good friends, and he actually offers a service where for a fee, he will take someone just from scratch and talk about voice acting with them and kind of train them a little bit as a director, because he is a director. Talk about how to give you range. And so people who want to get into the field can sometimes get into it through him, because I think, and I don't know how many people he's hired who he's helped, but it never hurts to know a director. But we don't have any of those open auditions anymore. It's a very different situation than it was, 25 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone looking to get into the industry now?
All the advice I always give people is that it's more about acting than about the voice, right? It's a lot of people can do things with their voice, but it takes a real acting skill, I think, to walk into a studio Because when you walk, even when you're an actor, when you walk into a room, even when you've got a script and you meet the director, you meet the cast, you rehearse it a bunch, you fine tune it. You don't do that in an anime studio. You just got to go. So you've got to have real confidence as an actor. You've got to have a certain foundation. You've got to have improvisation skills.
Mhm.
It's more than just being able to do a voice. It's also being able to be emotional in a scene that you don't even understand the context. So it's a lot of balls to juggle when you go into an anime studio. So I always tell people, take acting classes, do a play, do a musical, take improvisation classes in your town, go to improv shows, get into it and develop those kinds of skills, develop your acting skills. Anything that helps your acting skills is going to really give you a much better foundation underneath your talent of doing voices, because the two have to go together, right?
Mhm.
But acting more than voice, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like translated scripts from the Japanese. How do you do much improv for them, or do you have any input into the actual script, or is that just
Oh no, I
sense?
mean, the only thing that happens is, I'll tell you a couple of funny stories, but sometimes what happens is you'll be in the studio and the lip flaps won't match up. If the writing is really good, if the writer's done his job, he's already seen how many lip flaps, he's counted the lip flaps and made sure that his English translation matches the number of flaps. I would never want to do that. That sounds like the most tedious work you can do, but I mean, those guys really know what they're doing. But when you go in and it doesn't match and you can't make it match, sometimes you can say to the director, hey, what if I said this? Or what if I just, but you're not rewriting the lines.
Right.
So, but that has to happen sometimes if it doesn't match up. And sometimes at the end of a phrase in Japanese, they're usually ending on a vowel. So the mouth is left open when they're done with their sentence, and then they don't close their mouth. And then you're ending on a consonant in English. So you have to find a way to go, if you're ending on a consonant, you know, like the letter T, and you go "ta" or something, or you have to make sure your mouth can stay. It's really weird. It's really complicated.
Interesting.
There's a director named Stephen Foster who was at ADV. He's known for Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories is the big famous show that he was working on, because he changed everything in the script.
Yep.
Nothing was like the original script. And it was almost like Mystery Science Theater 3000 for anime.
Yeah, it was great.
He did that with other shows too. I walked in the studio one morning, we did Sorcerer Hunters, and I played this, you know, short, squatty, bald guy who was really built and jacked with a six-pack. And he was going, behold the beautiful body of the blah, 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 blah. And that was the voice I gave him. And those were the lines. And Steven didn't like it. It's like 8:30 in the morning. He's going, no, hold on. He goes outside, smokes a cigarette, comes back in. He's made my character like a Hans and Franz dude now, given him a totally different voice, changed all the lines. And I'm going, you should be able to crack walnuts with your butt cheeks. And I'm talking like Hans and Franz or something like that. Totally different than what the original script was. That was really funny. And then we did Cromartie High School together. And I played Yutaka Takenuchi, who's the school bully. And the school bully has a secret that he gets car sick. So if they're trying to go fight the gang and they got to get in the car, he doesn't want to get in the car. People will know he's a wuss because he gets car sick. It's way stupid, right? So there's a scene where my character is going, oh no, I think I'm going to be sick. And then his face clenches up like that. And I just went on the mic. I didn't know what to do on the mic. And I went, meh. So Steven started laughing so hard. I said, stop laughing. We can't get through the session because we were laughing so hard. And I tried to make myself feel grossed out so I wouldn't be laughing. And so I said, okay, Steven, shut up. Okay, dead puppies, ugly nuns. I said whatever I could think of to gross myself out. He said, that's great. Say that. I went, what? He said, say dead puppies and ugly nuns. I said, you're kidding. He said, no. I said, why would he say that? He said, don't worry, I'll just put it in. If you watch Cromartie High School, episode 3, I promise you'll see him on the bus. He's getting sick and he's going, I think I'm going to be sick. And then when his face clenches up, you hear dead puppies, ugly nuns, and he sped it up. Nobody understands it unless I tell them the story. They're like, what did he say? Steven's nuts.
Wow.
But that's what he did. He rewrote stuff on the fly.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
I know, it's really crazy.
Yeah. Anything else? Nope. I have a question I like to ask.
Okay.
What is there any that influences your acting that we wouldn't expect? Like maybe.
I'm sorry, you're dropping out a couple times. What was the question?
Sorry. Is there anything that influences your acting that people wouldn't expect?
Anything that influences my acting that people wouldn't expect?
Yeah.
Whew, you got some good questions. Never heard that one before. Anything that influences my acting. You know, every actor is different, and I'm in my head a lot. I'm real cerebral, right? I mean, I start from kind of the inside and I go out. I don't, well, you know, it depends on the character, because sometimes I start with a voice and then I create the character, you know, then I go inside and create it internally and think about what would he be feeling or whatever, but it starts with a voice first.
Right.
And sometimes I do some method acting. What I do in the studio is a lot of actors have to flail around when they're having a problem or they're having a fight. They like to do it physically. So they're feeling like they're on stage and they're doing it like that. And that helps them get into them. And I don't do it at all. I just sit there, you know, and just do it all in here and here.
Mhm.
That's me. I mean, that works for me. Some directors are really confused about that. They're like, how do you get into this scene without physically getting into it? And I just don't, that's just not the way I work. So I'm way up in my head, but sometimes I will just try to imagine, again, when everything is being done for you on screen and you're just providing the voice for it, it's a very different feel than having to put on a costume, having to look physically like the character. You know what I mean? Having to come off and have this vibe of what you think this character actually is in front of you. It's all taken care of you on screen. So I don't really, I do, sometimes I do improvs as the character. If I'm in a play, I'll be at home and I'll pretend my character's in a different situation than he is in the script. Like, how would my character make breakfast? Or how would my character talk on the phone or watch Netflix or walk around the house? And I'll try to do that just so by the time I get into the scene, I've got a life of my own. You know, I've got this, it's a little method, you know, it's a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what,
Do that sometimes.
do you ever in the booth, are you ever acting other actor there, or is it always just you?
Always just you. The only time we've ever been in a booth with other people is recording commentary on a DVD or doing a special feature or doing a parody, or which we did a couple times, or we record Walla with other actors. Like we try to get a group scene of people going, oh, look, oh my God, the building's falling down, call the heroes and stuff like that. You know, we get in there with, but it's almost never with other actors. And that's kind of a weird thing because there's some actors who I just met at this convention this weekend who I've done shows with before years ago, but I never met them in person because we never met in the hallway of the studio. We never met in the studio. So I know a lot of other voice actors either through Houston theater and oh, you happen to do anime. Now I know you this way, but we don't, or we might meet in the hallway or the lobby. And that's it. This, if they're after you or before you for their session, right? Otherwise, no, you don't meet them. You're only in there by your lonesome.
Sure. Have you ever heard your voice in a role and you forgot you had done that, or like a fan said, I loved you as this, and you're like, I don't remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a great story. It's embarrassing. I told it at my panel yesterday and it made everybody really crack up. But when you, like I said, if I look back on my IMDb page, or I look on my little pictures, like behind the voice actors, they got little pictures of your characters, half of them easily from ADV from years ago. I'm like, I don't remember that. I don't remember this. I don't remember what that guy sounded like. I have no idea what I did for that. I can't remember, because you just walked in on a Tuesday, you had a 2-hour session, you recorded this character and you went home.
Yeah.
And you never went back and did it again. It's not like when you rehearse a play and you do a play over and over, you remember your lines, you remember the scenes, you remember. So I went to record Vampire Hunter D, of all things, at Sentai in 2015 with Matt Greenfield. He said, I'd never heard of it before. I'd never heard the name Vampire Hunter D. I never knew about Bloodlust. I never knew about the fan. I never knew about the lore. And that's really good, actually, by the way, because if you know about it and there's pressure, that can affect your performance. Oh, I got to get it right. And then you're not natural.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about it. And Vampire Hunter D has like 7 lines. He like shows up, kills a vampire, leaves, you know, he's very quiet, very stoic. So it only took us about an hour and a half to record Vampire Hunter D. It was really old animation from 1980s. It was really retro. And I was like, oh, cool, a little retro anime. Okay, cool. Thanks, Matt. I'll see you later. I completely forgot about it. Forgot the name of the show. Forgot everything. It's Vampire Hunter D.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. So later, a few weeks later, a friend of mine completely starts fangirling out, and she goes, "John, you did Vampire Hunter D, and congratulations! And you and your friends got nominated for an anime dub award for best cast." And I was like, "That's great. Vampire what?" She went, "John, Vampire Hunter D. We're doing Vampire Hunter D." I was like, "No, I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did that show." She goes, "John, you were D." I was like, "Not following you." She just like face palms, and she goes, "John, look it up." I'm like looking it up. I go, and I see a picture of him, and I go, "Oh yeah, that. That's right. Yeah, I did that." She was just like, "Oh my God." Because she thought I was being all aloof, like, "Oh yes, that. I remember that city anime that I recorded between my lunch break and my dry cleaning." She thought I was being all aloof and everything. I was like, I honestly did not remember it, right? That was kind of embarrassing, but that's a funny story. But yeah, I mean, you'll run into a lot of actors, honestly, who, because of the fact that you just go in for like an hour to 2 hours on a Tuesday, and then you never see it again unless you get a copy of the DVD, or unless there's some big scene that you have that you really remember, you sometimes forget about these shows. And so if I go back and look at them again, I'll remember them. I'll go, "Oh, okay, I remember that."
Yeah.
But it's fleeting. It's really, really quick. So you don't remember all the stuff you did.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I guess kind of going off that, do you ever go back and watch roles you play, like say Gentle Criminal? And what's it like being an actor watching that from the outside, like hearing your own voice and watching your character on that show?
So you're, if I heard your whole question, so what's it like if you have you ever gone back and looked at stuff that you've done before, and what's it like watching it from the outside, not being a part of it anymore, right?
Right.
It's really interesting. I've watched a couple of shows that I've done because I just wanted to see how they came out. We did Excel Saga at ADV, and I wanted the whole series. They always gave us a copy. They used to give us copies on VHS. Then they gave us copies on and they gave us copies on DVD. And so I've got DVDs of some of my older shows, and I went back and watched a couple of them. And some of the lines I didn't remember, some of the screaming that I had to do I didn't remember, and it's like, wow, okay, this and sometimes I've gone, man, I heard this line at the beginning, and then later in the show when I got in the zone, I sounded more like the character. So at the beginning, I didn't sound exactly like I did later.
Mhm.
I've noticed that a couple of times because I'm picky about that. You know, I'm all hearing
Yeah.
because you hear your own voice, and you're your worst critic. Um, and I watched My Hero Academia is the only show that I've watched before I had to record it. I did my research because it was such a popular show, and I had heard so much about it, and I was really excited to get the part. And I did my research on it, and I bugged the director too much about it, and I was kind of being a bit of a, you know, too much of an master thespian about it. But when I went back and watched that, and I've watched it once because I wanted to see how all the episodes turned out, and you know, you want to show it to people because it was a big deal. I enjoyed it. I really thought we did a great job because, and I could tell that the research I did for it affected the acting better. It was a little bit better. So, you know, sometimes you watch. I did a show a long time ago at ADV. I had no idea what I was saying. I didn't know what this character meant by what he was saying. He was talking about these, and I just tried to give it some flair and make it work. And if you watch it in context, it kind of works.
Mhm.
But now I get it. If I watch it, I'm like, oh, now I understand the story. Because when I watched it, when I was in the studio, I didn't know what happened between these 3 episodes that I was in. I was in this one, this one. I didn't know
Yeah.
what happened. So you go back and watch it to kind of fill in the blanks. And you're like, oh, maybe I could have done a better job if I would have known everything. But you'd have to watch all these animes, and you got to have the time to watch them all. And
Right.
if you, yeah, it's tough.
Um, what would you say is a big difference recording back in the 90s versus today?
A big difference recording back then. You know, in the 90s and early 2000s, we had our scripts on paper. You know, the director had to like, we're waiting for all the scripts to get copied on the Xerox machine or the printers at Link. We
Yeah.
literally didn't have them on screen like we do in a
Uh-huh.
computer. We didn't have them in a Word document. We didn't. Now they can just do a search on your character. They can just pull up stuff, edit it on the fly. Or
Yeah.
if I'm in my home studio, I'm watching the script on my phone while I've got my laptop open to watch the anime, and I've got my headphones to record it, and they can change the script lines on the fly on my phone. Everything's much more high tech, much easier, much more efficient, of course, today. But it used to be on paper. So I'd have to have a pencil and a pen and scratch out lines and rewrite them
Hmm.
in the studio, like you're doing old time radio stuff.
Right.
That's the biggest difference. It took more time.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
My favorite thing about my job is that, well, there's lots of things I love about it. I love the fact that you don't have to look great or feel great when you go into the studio. I can be just needing my coffee, and as long as my voice sounds right, and as long as I'm good to go voice wise, everything else is taken care of for you. So it's a lot of fun. It's an interesting, fun way to work.
Mhm.
I love the fact that so many people are into anime, and that we can do something that makes a lot of people happy and that we enjoy it. I love going to cons. I love meeting people who like your work. It's so interesting because when you go to see someone in a play, you can meet them in the lobby after the show and say, I really like that. I was just in the audience watching you do that. I really like your performance.
Mhm.
There's so many people who have seen stuff that you've done with anime and appreciate your work, but if you don't go to their city and go to their convention, you never get to meet them. And it's really, really nice being able to meet people. That's what I like about cons the most, is being able to go and have panels in person or do virtual ones like this and see some people's faces, and they can say, hey man, I really like the work that you've done on this show. That's really fun. That's what cons are. That's why I love cons so much. So there's a lot about working in anime that I didn't expect was going to happen that is really enjoyable. I never thought when I started recording these things that there would be conventions that I would go to, and you'd meet actual fans and you'd meet people who like to watch that stuff. It makes sense, but you never thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's a lot of fun just meeting everyone.
Oh yeah, it's great. I love it.
Have you ever met with or talked with or from the Japanese side of the production? Have they ever said like, we hate this?
What did you do to my character? Why
Yeah.
did you screw it up, you dumb American? No, I've never met. Well, no, wait a minute. Okay, that's not true. I did meet, I have met, there's been a couple of sessions that we had to do at Sentai recently where we had to go in really early in the morning because we were working on Saint Seiya, which is Saint Seiya Knights of the Zodiac for Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why they cast me in this role. I play Master Mu, and he doesn't look anything like me, sound anything like me. So I gave it more of a voice like that. And he's just kinds of talking like breathy, like up here. And it's weird because he's got these weird golden horns and purple hair and nothing like me. I don't know why anybody looked at that role and said, that's John Gremillion, get him in here. But there was like, where was I going with that? The director had to have on a Zoom call in the studio, the Japanese director, a couple of the writers, the whole team, while we were recording the session, so we could get certain words right, so that they could give their particular spin on how, because they hadn't animated it yet. They hadn't done the animation for Netflix yet.
Oh.
So we had to record the lines to these little sketch drawings, like animatics, instead of the actual finished anime.
Oh, wow.
Then they came in and brought in a video camera to record me saying every line again to the video camera, so they could match my lips, make my lips move correctly, so that they could 3D animate that and make it more realistic. And that took a really long time. And then I was able to, is anybody's into Halo Legends? Halo Legends was released as a special Blu-ray by ADV early 2000s or something, and I'm a video editor as well. So they had me come in and video edit the behind the scenes footage when they interviewed the directors and some of those other people. So we got to meet them, and they were really cool. And I got to see a lot of behind the scenes stuff about how those creators were into that. They're so into it. I mean, the work they put in is pretty fascinating. It takes such a long time to create these kinds of, especially at least in the world of Halo, it's so painstaking, right? They put so much work into it. And so yeah, I was able to meet those people in those sessions, but that's it.
Right. Yeah. So was that Saint Seiya, they were animating it after you recorded, was that only for Western audiences, or were they doing both Japanese and American or English?
I think, good question. I think Saint Seiya Knights of the Zodiac's only in English. I think, yeah. I don't know if they've done. It must be because they're animating it for. They were animating our lip moves for the animation they were going to create. So I think it's only in. I think it's only in English. Don't quote me, but yeah. But the old retro Saint Seiya, we played the same role. So we were recording doing a new version of the retro Saint Seiya anime, doing that again, and then doing Knights of the Zodiac in 3D. It's two different shows.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years ago we did that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone?
How hard is it to get work, to get jobs?
The question is, how hard is it to find jobs?
To find anime jobs?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a tough question because things have changed a lot since I started. Things are more competitive now, I think, because of the pandemic. That threw a wrench into things, or not a wrench into things, but it changed the dynamic because on the one hand, we were able to studios were able to now record people from their homes. And that means they could use LA talent, Chicago, New York talent. They didn't have to fly anybody in. Their talent pool could expand a lot. And maybe that's changing back again and compressing again, because now that Crunchyroll, at least, wants to have people show up in person to record in person in their studios, that limits how many people they can use from out of town. So it keeps changing how easy it is for people to get the anime work. And like I said, I auditioned a long time ago, and people know me. So they know me from 25 years ago and from throughout my careers doing anime in Houston and in Fort Worth. So they don't have to, they know what I can do. And when they have a role for me, they just give me a call, or they'll send me in some audition sides and I can audition. That happens a lot more with Crunchyroll than with Sentai. Sentai, they know me really well. I know all the directors over there, and they're like, yeah, let's get John for this. Let's get John for that. And I never auditioned for them. I audition a lot more for Crunchyroll and Funimation, and that's just their process. That's what they like to do, and I think they can afford to do that. And they have a different way of going about it. So that's a tough question because it's not hard for me to find work at Sentai. I usually work at Sentai every couple of months at least. I go in and record for some new show, or some bit parts or whatever. And but auditioning for other shows, that's a lot more competitive.
Do you go through an agent or do you work with them directly?
I work with them directly. I have an agent, but we don't have anime go through them because I got those clients on my own before I ever got an agent.
Okay.
I got an agent after I started doing anime, and so my agent takes care of like commercial auditions, film roles, anything else I want to do, or corporate video. You audition for corporate video for gas companies and hospitals and stuff like that, or promotional stuff, fundraising. Yeah.
Is that for like internal like training videos and stuff like that?
Yeah, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And there's a commercial I've got on TV. If you've seen commercials for Prevagen, it's a brain supplement. They show it on like Judge Judy and Wheel of Fortune and stuff like that. And I'm just at this thing going, Prevagen, healthier brain, better life. And they put that, but it's mostly testimonials. People go, I take Prevagen and now I can play chess.
It's funny. I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Or like an ad, and I'm like, oh, I've heard that voice actor.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that happens
fun.
a lot.
Do you like now that you're going back into the store, or did you like working from home?
I love working from home, actually. It's a lot more convenient. Well, especially with Fort Worth, because if you drive to, if you're doing a simuldub for Crunchyroll, you're going to drive in from Houston to Crunchyroll once a week if you're in every episode. You don't know when that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're doing a simuldub, they get the Japanese one out, then they know what the script is the next week, and they don't know if you're going to be in it next week or what. They could call you every week. You've got to be able to drive up to Fort Worth for 4 hours and back, get a hotel room probably, or unless you want to drive up really early in the morning, record, then drive all the way back. That's 8 hours in the car. So yeah, a lot more convenient to do it from home. I was really, really happy when I was able to do it from home and it worked. And hopefully, I don't know if that's going to continue or not. I don't know if they're going to be, if I'm going to be able to record, like if I have some lines as Mihawk, and Mihawk is so interesting because Mihawk in One Piece, I record him once every couple of years.
Mhm.
He just shows up and goes, "Hello, I'm a badass," and then he leaves. Goodbye. And he's in a couple of episodes or has a fight, and then he goes home. So I had 2 lines in the movie. They did Stampede, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll just let me say, "Hey, go upstairs and record this line as Mihawk. Don't drive all the way out here. Just record a couple of."
Right.
It depends. I don't know how they're going to work it, but I've got to respect their process. It's not up to us.
Yeah. With the I think the Crunchyroll simuldubs, how is the turnaround from you recording to them releasing the episode?
Good question. I think at least a month.
Oh wow.
I think
Yeah.
they have to mix and master and then put it out, and it takes a little while, at least a month.
Any
Has he done any film acting?
have you done any film or screen acting?
I've done a little bit of screen acting. I did a commercial in Houston for Metro. I did some commercials. I did some corporate video on screen for different corporate jobs, for medical stuff, for hospitals, for corporate. Mostly that. I've done a couple of small independent films that I don't think anybody's ever seen, but not a lot of big stuff. No TV.
Right.
No.
How's the pay? Is the pay going up over time or is
For voice.
it the pay is very good?
Yeah, the question is how is the pay for, is it going up, or is it over the years? Yeah, for
anime recording.
yeah.
It's essentially been the same. You get a studio fee when you go in for an hour, and then if you're there for another, it's like one fee for the first hour, which is a little bit higher, and then every subsequent half hour or hour is a smaller fee, is a smaller rate, and it's only slightly different between the studios. It's essentially the same, but it's never changed. It's almost never changed. It's been the same since the late 90s.
Wow.
And you don't get residuals, so even if you can pop up Netflix or Hulu and say, me and my friends were on that anime, we're on this, we're on that, it doesn't affect, you don't get any residuals from it. So I wouldn't tell people, I've never told anybody or given the advice that you can make a full-time living just recording anime.
Right.
Now, voice actors, we can go to conventions and we can, make money at conventions, et cetera, but that's where you make more money probably than in the studio. But that wasn't the way it was when we started in the 90s. The conventions were tiny, and all they could do is say, "Hey, we can get you a plane ticket and a hotel room, but that's it." And you didn't sit at a table, you didn't sign autographs, or if you signed autographs, it was free. You were signing badges, you were signing whatever, and you were just doing some
Yeah.
meet and greets, and that was about it. And it really grew and expanded over time. But the studio fees are the same.
Is there anything that you've always like talk about but no one's ever asked you as a question?
That what now?
Is there anything you wanted to talk about, or like had a fun story but nobody's really asked you?
Oh, gosh, fun story nobody's ever asked me. I've told all I tell stories sometimes that are I've told a couple today, but no, usually not. I usually am able to say, "Hey, let me tell you something that happened in the studio." What's the weirdest thing that's ever happened in a studio? The weirdest, this was not anime, but this is how you have to be a professional and have to work with directors, right? Because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And some directors don't know how to communicate, and some directors communicate in very odd ways what they want. They don't know how to, and some of them just want to give you a line reading. They would say it like this, say it just like this. And some actors don't like that. And you have to walk a line between being professional and getting what you want, because you're there for a reason, but the director's there for a reason too. And you've got to be able to take direction, because there's nothing that will get you in trouble more than saying, "Oh, I'm not going to do what you want to do." They'll say, "Oh, we'll get somebody else."
Yeah.
So unless you're inexpendable, and I don't think anybody really is, but you go, I was recording a commercial one time there was a soprano who was on Broadway, and she had an album out. She was putting out albums and going on tour. And they were doing a commercial for a 1-800, call 1-800 and get her new album, right? It's one of those infomercials that lasts way too long.
Yeah.
So I had to record this, and I went into a studio in Houston. The producer is in my right ear in my headphones from New York, live, and the commercial audio is playing in my left ear. So that was weird enough. But
yeah.
my buddy is in the booth, like engineering in the booth. So I go, okay, let's record this. So I'm just trying to be real cool and go, Sarah Brightman, whose incomparable soprano voice has captivated millions worldwide, invites you to invite her new album, Harem, on 1-800. And this woman goes, okay, John, that's great. Okay, hold on one second. You're gonna have to forgive me because I speak in metaphors. But what she tried to give me some direction, and she said this, I'm not joking. She goes, what I'm thinking when I'm listening to this music is, what kind of wine would I be drinking listening to this music? I'm thinking like a full-bodied Merlot. She said that. And I just went,
What do you do with that?
and my buddy goes, oh. So instead of saying, oh, well, what brand of Merlot do you want? I didn't want to mess with her.
Yeah.
I said, let me see if I understand what you're asking. Do you want me just to sound more smooth? Silence. I'm like, okay, smooth. So I said, then I started like giving her imagery. I said, okay, so you want me to like lay in a bathtub and I've got some Merlot and I'm looking outside at the sunset. Oh yes, give me sunset, give me sunset. If you go back and listen to what we finally came up with that she liked, all she wanted me to do was flatten everything out and sound stoned, like Sarah Brightman is incomparable soprano voice, call 1-800, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing the whole way through. That's all she wanted me to do. It's weird, but that's the weirdest direction I've ever gotten. You've got a part of being a pro and trying to be professional about your job is to just go in there and take whatever they throw at you and just try to communicate and meet somewhere in the middle about what they want.
Right.
Anime directors are a little better at telling you what's going on. Yeah.
Really role that you unexpectedly love to do.
What role was I not expecting to love so much?
Yeah.
Yutaka Takenuchi, the bully, the school bully.
Oh, yeah.
Because those sessions were so much fun. We literally had to reschedule sessions because we couldn't get through the session because we were laughing so much. I couldn't get through some of my lines. We did 20 takes of this one line and I couldn't get through it because we were cracking up. And Steven had to go and then leave the room so he would laugh over here.
Yeah.
And I just
Oh my
couldn't.
gosh.
He scheduled me a couple days later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever turn down work?
Question is, do you ever turn down roles or turn down work?
Nope. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever turned down a role. Oh, maybe sometimes I ask the directors. There was a couple of animes that I did that I was kind of like, do I have to say that line? And this is really adult and this is really gross and I'm not too into this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been one or two anime that I thought were not really up my alley because they were really violent and gross, and it seemed to be like the point of view of the script seemed to be, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is cool that this is so gross and awful. I was like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I don't want, to be honest with you. If you're going to be violent, let the bad guys be bad guys, So this was like rooting for the bad guys. And don't you want to watch this gross anime where everybody's head's getting blown off? I'm like, no. So I was kind of sorry that I said yes, because I didn't know what to expect. But sometimes I won't turn down work, but I will ask the directors sometimes, hey, listen, how bad is this show? What's the point of view? And if it's really offensive to me, I might say no, but that's not a good habit to get into, really.
All right. I think we have time for about one more question and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Okay.
The audience?
Have you ever been to California and done work in LA?
Or done work in California, been over there?
I have not.
Nope.
I think I did a job one time for a radio commercial that took place in LA, but we recorded it in Houston or New York when we did the New York, the one I just told you about, but I've never been out to LA. I didn't fit in LA. I visited a few times and I was with a band and we played a couple of gigs and I was like, I don't like LA. I'd get eaten up out here. It's too competitive.
Yeah, I had a panel last night with some voice actors from California and they had some wild.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
My last question is, if there was one thing about voice acting, the industry, your job, what would it be?
If there was one, what? Say it again.
You could change about your job, what would it be?
Oh, if there was one thing I could change about it, be able to replace my throat after throat replacements.
Module.
Yeah, modules that I could pop in there, and yeah, if I could go longer in the studio without having to take a break, that'd be great. Gosh, that's a good question. I wish it were easier to keep up with all of the shows that are out there and the ones that are popular, and be able to know more about what's going into a studio, be able to know more about a show before you go in. You can do that sometimes now with simuldubs, because if a simuldub is happening and you know you're going to record a simuldub episode next week of My Hero, you can watch the Japanese sub version this week and go in and record the English one next week. You can do your research.
Yeah.
You used to not be able to do that. It was really tough. So that is something that's changed. It's made things a little easier, because you can know more about your character and about the scene and about what you're going to do, and you can do preparation more.
If you didn't do this kind of work, what kind of work would you do?
Oh, it's a good one. If you didn't do this kind of, what would you do?
If I didn't do this, what would I do?
Yep.
I've thought about film directing. I'd like to direct. Either direct a play or direct, because I'm a video editor, and editing involves kind of directing a little bit, because you're putting it
Yeah.
together and you're really telling the story, and it's coming together in the edit room, right? No matter what got filmed, and you can make or break something in the editing room. So I like that creative part of the process, and I like being able to shape it like that. So I would like to maybe move up to directing one day if I could.
Well, thank you so much. Can you tell us where we can find you and or
Yes.
what you're doing?
Yes. Okay. So I have a website. Well, can I share the screen?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me see. I think you've disabled screen sharing. Hold on.
Oh,
I think you have to enable it. I can talk about it if you can. If you can enable it, I'll show it to you. If not, I can just tell you.
yeah, I think someone else is the co-host. So
Oh, all right. No
I'm
problem. So I have a website, johngremillion.com. That's where I keep everything updated and where you can find me.
Yeah.
Con announcements, things like that. And you can also order prints, and I can send them to you. I can do signatures and send them to people. You can order them online if you can't maybe at a con or something. On Twitter, I'm jgrem, JGREM. So at jgrem on Twitter. Let's see. And Instagram, just my full name, John Gremillion on Instagram.
Great.
And let's see what else. That's pretty much it. I don't really have I have a YouTube channel, but it's more for video editing, and I haven't really added to it in a lot. So I don't use YouTube too much. I'm more Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We loved having you.
I love being here. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll make it up to Maine someday.
Yes, I would love to. I'd love to see you guys. Cheerios. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.